Welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is another episode of the Canton Cover-Up Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. And also, we discussed Turtle Boy, Aiden Turtle Boy Carney, and his case, and also the Canton Nine when and if we ever get information about those cases. So we're gonna do on this episode, we're gonna do a quick Turtle Boy update, and but the main topic of this episode is Mean Moms of Canton. Well, she sucks. And I think that title pretty much says it all, along with the faces that these ladies seem to be making at one another. Obviously, they are snapshots taken in time that I put in there, so take it for what you will. It's not, it's my presentation of it, but these faces were made by these women at some point during the trial. Um, anyways, so I'm going to, like I said, first I want us to go over a really quick video about Turtle Boy because he had a hearing last week. So Thursday, there wasn't any court in the Karen Reed case because there was a Turtle Boy hearing for some reason. They don't like to do Turtle Boy and Karen Reed at the same time. So there was a hearing that day on Thursday, and I'll Tim Bradle, who is Turtle Boy's attorney, is very fired up about the First Amendment, and this whole case is just screaming with the First Amendment issues regarding Turtle Boy and his rights to say the things that he wants to say on his platform. So with that, here, let's watch this little video, and then I'll give you some of my take on what happened. Oh no, it's on mute. Here we go.
Blogger known as Turtle Boy has been out on bail on these witness intimidation charges since February, but he's still subject to certain court limitations. Now he wants the court to speed up his case. Aiden Carney went from the press box to the defense table in the courtroom today, where his lawyer once again insisted he's not a harasser, but a journalist.
We contend that journalistic activity has never before been a basis for felonious witness intimidation.
Prosecutors have claimed Karen Reed secretly fed Carney information so that he could publicize her version of the case, namely that someone else killed her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, and that she is being framed by police.
I was outraged because I am a state witness that is being tortured because of lies.
On the witness stand this week, Jen McCabe rejected Reed's defense claims that she was involved in O'Keefe's death and testified that Carney and other Reed supporters have harassed witnesses by coming to their homes, screaming at them, and sending them items in the mail.
They took a picture of my daughter and put semen on it and said property of some named blogger.
There were no pictures sent to her of her children with sexual things on her face. That is a complete lie.
The judge in the Reed case has ordered Carney to stay out of the courtroom during testimony by McCabe and certain other witnesses. Carney's lawyer says the prosecutors are slow-rolling his witness intimidation case to prevent him from covering the trial.
We're going to show that it's not a crime, that it's all First Amendment protected activity.
Now, the special prosecutor appointed for Kearney's case has fallen ill. The judge told the prosecutor's stand-in today that he has 3 weeks to share evidence with the defense. Otherwise, he'll consider dismissing this case. Testimony in the Reed trial resumes tomorrow.
All right. Stop. All right. So let me get back to the screen. All right, so perfect. So we saw in that a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. So Aiden is being charged with 9 felony witness intimidation charges. This is considered a felony to this county, this state. Apparently, they have a law that says something about witnesses and causing emotional harm. So these individuals, the McAlberts, as we call them now, the McCabe's and the Alberts, they have basically, doubled down on all their lies. They are not admitting to anything, and they're coming off as total liars on the stand. And it is evident that whatever happened that night, there are secrets that happened in that house and with the witnesses of this case. So originally, Jen McCabe, I think, was it Chris Albert or one of the Alberts? Um, I know Colin Albert, originally a bunch of individuals asked for an emergency restraining order from Turtle Boy because he's talking about them on his blog. He's talking about them on his live show because he's covering this case intently and they are a part of the story, whether they like it or not. They are the so-called witnesses, aren't they? So, what did they witness? That's the thing. I think none of them are telling us the truth about what really happened that night. I I'll save my opinions on some other things. But anyways, so Turtle Boy is not allowed to be in the courtroom because of this witness intimidation thing. So these individuals originally tried to get a restraining order. It was denied by the court. So they were like, "Oh, how else can we get Turtle Boy on something? There has to be something." So they got him on this witness intimidation charge, which is a total bogus statute and it's unconstitutional in and of itself. How it, well, it was never used as a weapon before, probably, is what I'm thinking, how it never got looked at, another look to say, hey, why are we um, taking away someone's rights here in this particular um, statute? So that's kind of where we're at with Turtle Boy. His lawyer, Tim Bradle, was completely fed up. He was very spicy during this hearing. I had heard audio of it. Um, he Tim Bradle is accusing Ken Mello, who didn't even show up again. Ken Mello, he's accusing Ken of prolonging this trial because they want to go to trial. They're supposed to, Turtle Boy is entitled to a trial to defend himself against these witness intimidation charges. And the Commonwealth doesn't want to hand over any kind of discovery or anything like that. Then they're just not being cooperative. They're handing over things that are meant to like confuse or delay the process, like, oh yeah, we handed over this flash drive but the flash drive's empty. You know what I'm saying? So they're playing some tricks with this discovery. So Tim Bradle he's had enough. He was telling the judge, I'm gonna file for I want 14 days for all this discovery turned into me, or I'm going to file for failure to prosecute because Ken Mello is just continuing over and over again. And that's, I mean, it just appears that they're trying to do this in order to keep him from reporting on this case or from, effectively reporting on this case. They've kicked him out of the courtroom anytime there's a witness that's, there's like 12, 13 people on the list that he has to leave the courtroom when they come and testify, and it's all the good testimony that we want to hear. So it is so bogus that she won't let him in the courtroom. But you know what? At least it's streamed. So that's the only good thing about it. He can go back and watch it anytime he wants, and he can watch it live from wherever he wants. So Turtle Boy. The judge did say then eventually he gave so there was a new attorney for the Commonwealth, although I don't know if he's like fully in the role, but because Ken Mello's not totally out of it, they need him to recuse himself, and they talked about that too. There was some text message where Ken Mello texted Lindsay Gattani, who is Aiden's ex-fling thing, he said something to the effect of he was going to take himself off of this case, but I don't know anything further on that. That was just a text message. Um, Besides Mello, what else was I gonna say about that? So the new prosecutor has 21 days. That's what the judge gave him. 21 days to hand over discovery, or he will consider dismissing the case because of failure to prosecute. So that's where we're at for Turtle Boy, and it's good. It's a good thing that they just get these charges dismissed because it's preventing him from being effective. And it also is this thing over his head that he doesn't deserve and he didn't do the crimes that they're saying he did in order to have this restraining order and these witness intimidation charges and whatever. It's all just bogus. But anyway, so that's kind of what's going on in the world of Turtle Boy. That was a little longer than I wanted it to be, but that's okay. I ramble. All right, so we're going, it's my channel. I can ramble. All right, so for the rest of this episode now, that we're done with Turtle Boy, he's still effectively, doing his live streams and working around the Boston Celtics schedule, but he's there. And he's giving us his updates too. So in this case, so where I'm going to take you now is up first. So we're going to back to the Mean Moms of Canton. We're going to discuss here and here. All right, so this is Jennifer McCabe. We are going to watch a little bit of her testimony. I have some clips I have picked out from the Mean Moms of Canton because I fully believe that there is a mean mom mob that surrounded John, and it was impossible for Karen to not compare herself to some of these other female friends that helped John out in his parenting career. Throughout his parenting career, he met these moms because his daughter, well, it's out there in court. I'm not gonna not say their name because whatever, I already just slipped. So, um, the daughter was friends with other people, and so he became friends with the moms in order to, help with parenting. And even Carrie Roberts testified that she would take the son, or the his nephew, and then Jen McCabe would take the niece after school. Whoops, hold on one second. I'm trying to do dual screen over here. This screen, I need this open. All right, so this is going to be the first clip, and I call this Bring Your Own Glass, Parenting Problems, and D&E Pizza. One second. All right, here.
Yes, I do.
You identify this as where she's seated or not?
She's seated between her attorneys.
You want to pass a record reflect identification?
Yes.
Now, with respect to defendant Ms. Reed, when was it that you met her?
John had reached out to me saying that he was dating a new girl and that she had MS and I also have MS. So he said he would like for me to meet her.
And how long have you had MS?
I believe it will be 10 years this October.
And do you recall specifically when around that was, what year, what month, anything like that?
That I met Ms. Reed? Yes, they came over in July of 2020.
And came over to your house, is that correct?
Yes, they came over to the house. They brought the kids, swam. I have a pool.
Now, over the course of, you're familiar obviously that Ms. Reed was dating Mr. O'Keefe, correct? Mm-hmm. Over the course of time,
Yes. Sorry.
Over the course of time from July 2020, when you met her, to January 2022, how often would you see Ms. Reed?
It would vary. There were times that we would bump into them, or depending on their sports, or, for my daughter's birthday party, when it was time to pick up, they'd come over and hang out, or Halloween. It just varied. We have 4 kids, so we're always kind of in all different directions. Sometimes it depends on what month it is and what team we're with.
And how would you describe your relationship with Miss Reed?
I enjoyed Miss Reed. I really liked her. I thought we connected from the beginning. She was very easy to talk.
I enjoyed Miss Reed. It's just a weird way to say it. Like, you say like I liked her, we got along great. I don't know. I enjoyed her. It's a weird way to say it.
And how would you describe your relationship with Miss Reed?
I enjoyed Miss Reed. I really liked her. I thought we connected from the beginning. She was very easy to talk to. She had MS, I had MS, and there's not a lot of people our age that I personally know that have it. So it was nice to have someone who understood like what I was going through. So we had that in common.
Now, with respect to either starting with Mr. O'Keefe, was your friendship the type where you would have any sort of discussions about his relationship with Miss Reed or any girls that he dated at any point in time that you were friends with?
At different points, yes.
And what, if anything, specific do you recall him telling you about his relationship with Miss Reed specifically?
I'm going to allow that. I'd like to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please.
So you normally don't allow in statements from the deceased. Often, I mean, he's not here to tell us that this didn't happen. He's not here to say, that that's not true. And he can't say, he can't say his side of anything. So she allows a lot of hearsay and testimony that absolutely should not have been brought in this trial. It's absolutely meant to prejudice the jury to make them think she's a bad person. And I think Judge Cannoni's doing it on purpose. I think Judge Cannoni thinks she's guilty, or even if she doesn't, I think she wants to see her put away for it because she knows a lot of these characters. Judge Cannoni, her brother was the attorney for Chris Albert when he took the life of someone in a drunk driving accident. And he only did 6 months, even though it was a hit and run. They followed him home with the trail of gasoline or whatever was leaking. So they're not very bright, and Judge Cannoni is connected. There's another way she's connected to, I think it's the McCabe's, or maybe the Alberts, but it might be the McCabe's, who have a seaside cottage beach or something where they said that they were going to bury Turtle Boy. Somebody, Sean McCabe. Yeah, Sean McCabe said that's where they're going to bury Turtle Boy's remains. So these people are super, don't you think?
Yes.
Right, and this is a longer clip. Same clip. Sorry to interrupt. All right, what's going on? Oh, they're on a sidebar. Sorry. Sidebar.
And his relationship with Miss Reed, is that something that you spend any real time talking about with Mr. O'Keefe?
No, occasionally, hey, how are things going? How's she feeling? How's she doing? Very general.
And same sort of question with regards to Miss Reed, is that a conversation that you had as far as her relationship with Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, similar. Mm-hmm.
Now, on that evening, if I could turn you back to the waterfall, you arrived about 9. About what time was it that you left?
Approximately midnight, a little give or take.
And so during the 3 hours or so that you were there, how would you describe sort of the mood or demeanor of the group that you were with during the time you were there?
Fine, friendly, normal, typical night, just out having a drink, listening to music.
And you mentioned about 11 o'clock or so was that Mr. O'Keefe and Miss Reed came into the bar?
Correct.
And when they came to the bar, where did they go in relation to where you were?
They came right over and talked to the group that we were with.
And when Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant came over, what, if anything, did you observe the defendant do or have with her when she came?
Oh, she had brought a glass with her and kind of took it out of her coat and just kind of chuckled about it.
What, if anything, did you observe about the glass?
I believe it had ridges on it.
What, if anything, did you observe as far as what was in the glass?
This narrative has been going around since the beginning when the charging documents came out that Karen walked from C.F. McCarthy's to the Waterfall bar with a glass in her jacket There's like lightning going on and it's looking crazy. It's like still light out in my neighborhood, but I'm seeing flashes of lightning. Anyways, and there and there's the thunder. Um, must be far away. Anyways, so what was I saying now? That lightning's totally on my brain. ADHD, man, and autoimmune diseases. I can't even think of the words. Um, anyways, let's move on.
It was clear.
Was there any other kind of like a straw?
The whole the shaming thing of the glasses. It's like so they're saying that she brought a glass in her coat from C.F. McCarthy's to the waterfall bar. When she arrives at the waterfall bar, she takes the glass out of her coat, and that's what she's drinking out of. In the charging documents, it seems like over the a few hour period where she's there, it's like they give time or they don't provide timestamps, but they say how many drinks she had, which I think was like almost 9 drinks, and included shots, and she was pouring the shots in her um clear glass, but we saw her come in or we saw her leave the CF McCarthy's. We didn't see her take out anything or leave with anything. We don't see her, we don't have a good view of her from the camera angle, at least surveillance of her arriving and taking out a glass. Like we never see that happen. So if that did happen, it's a weird thing to say, like, oh, I think what they're trying to come across is, oh, she was such a drunk that she was bringing her own drink from the other bar, which I don't know if it happened or not, but I think that's what they're trying to imply is that she was just so wasted because they want to get her on the drinking charges under the influence.
Or line or anything like that?
I don't remember.
I don't
As
know
far as
what,
you knew,
what
at
it
some
was.
point did you become aware of
It
where
was clear liquid. Clear liquid. Nobody has testified to knowing what was in her glass. Not one person. All they have said so far is that it's a clear liquid. Karen had health problems. She might not drink that much, or she might not drink a lot. Maybe some of the glasses that or things that she ordered were water. She's got digestive issues. She has colitis, which I think is an autoimmune thing too, and she's got MS, which a lot of times it's common to have multiple autoimmune things. I have multiple things, many things. Um, so yeah. Anyways, let's move on. So everybody shamed her about her glass, or at least that's what it appears on the stand.
Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed had been prior to coming over to the waterfall?
Yes.
And where were they?
C.F. McCarthy's,
Where is that in location to the waterfall?
just right up the street.
Now, over the course of the evening, you were at a bar. Fair to say you were drinking, is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall specifically what you were drinking?
I think beer.
And same question with regard to Mr. O'Keefe. Do you recall him drinking, and if so, what, if anything, was he?
I can't be certain. Possibly beer, but I can't be certain.
And with respect to Ms. Reed, same question as far as do you recall her drinking, and if so, what, if anything, do you recall her?
Again, I remember just a clear glass with clear liquid in it.
Any different glass beyond the one that you've already testified about, or no?
I don't remember, sorry.
Couple more minutes on this clip. Sorry, dog was barking at another dog in the neighborhood. All right, so just a couple minutes left in this clip. So here we go.
Now, when you left the waterfall sometime around midnight, is that correct?
Yes.
And well, let me ask you this first. I'm sorry. So, with respect to the time that you were at the waterfall, did you speak with Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, briefly at the bar.
And do you recall just generally what it was that you talked about?
Yes, his niece had just gotten into Bishop Fian, so he was very excited.
And With respect to Miss Reed, did you speak to her at the bar?
Yes.
And do you recall what, if anything, the two of you spoke about?
Yes.
And what was it?
Karen had shared a little bit of frustration that morning, or one morning she had taken Kaylee to Dunkin' Donuts, and John, was frustrated, didn't, saying, don't take her. She's going to, make a habit of it, meaning like she's going to come to expect it every day. And then we just talked about how, challenging it is with kids. And, she mentioned that that's kind of all they have a fight about. And I said, yeah, well, welcome to parenthood, and, she just was a little bit frustrated, felt like the family needed to be doing more to help. And she just wished she had, more time, just her and John. But again, it was just, girlfriend to girlfriend kind of venting.
Girlfriend to girlfriend venting. That's what she says. I don't think she's a girlfriend.
Now, as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, what, if any, observations did you make as to how he was dressed?
Baseball hat, jeans. That's what I remember.
Do you recall any sort of winter coat or heavier coat or anything like that?
No.
Now, over the course of the evening at the waterfall, what, if any, discussion was there amongst the group as far as going somewhere next or what to do after the waterfall?
Karen had asked Chris if we could go up to D&E. She wanted to go up to D&E and have him cook some food.
And was that something that was brought up by the defendant once or more than once or something?
Many times.
And what was sort of the response from the group in regards to going to D&E and making food?
So Ryan, Chris.
She's also a horrible person because she asked multiple times if they could go make pizza at the pizza shop, which was something that they did often. And oh, nice freeze frame on Jen. Yeah, she deserves it. Um, so Karen's a horrible person because she brings her own glasses into bars. She has parenting problems that she vents about with her girlfriend to girlfriend. And then she's also a terrible person because she wanted pizza made. What the nerve of her. This is just, can you believe it? Crazy. And I like that freeze frame. Next, this next clip, most of these clips are a lot shorter. There's just some where they play a little longer because you need context. When we get to the Sullivan sisters, those are going to be longer. But for Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts, it's going to be a little bit shorter. All right, let's get this clip.
I woke up to my phone ringing.
And do you know what time it was?
4:53.
And
This clip is called, I have titled it, She Was Just Screaming. This is all her direct testimony so far. She has, all of her quotes are on direct, these good quotes about her being a mean girl. It's just like little places throughout the testimony where she can just throw a dig at Karen, throw a dagger at her, make her hurt just a little bit more. So let's see what She Was Just Screaming is all about.
according to your phone, who was calling you at 4:53?
John's niece.
And so that would be John's niece, Haley, is that correct?
Correct.
And how old was she at this time?
I believe she was 14.
And she had just gotten into Bishop Fien, correct?
Correct.
So she was in 8th grade going in, finishing up her 8th grade year of middle school.
I have no idea what they are called. Bishop Fien? Is that the name of some school? I have no idea. But I have learned from watching other creators' streams that unfortunately the daughter who got into this private middle school, um, or no, not middle school, I guess high school. I guess it's a high school. So because she's just finishing up her 8th grade and she's a teenager now, so that would make sense. She is not going to this private school. She has been enrolled in Canton High. She is the custody of the nieces and nephew have been taken over by the grandparents who you see in court, Peggy and John O'Keefe Sr. And they have the kids now. They are raising them with their own influences on the kids. The McCabe's have put a lot of influence on the senior O'Keefes. and Paul and Aaron trying to make them believe that Karen's guilty. So I really truly believe that they all think, or at least want to believe, that she's guilty. And if they're watching the same trial as us, then they should know that she isn't at this point in time, and that they should really be trusting the friends that they keep in their circles, you know? But whatever. All right. Anyways, sorry, that was a long rant too. I just have so much to say about this case. It infuriates me.
Yes.
Is that a normal thing that Kaylee will be calling you at 4:53 in the morning on a Saturday?
No.
So you answer the call, is that correct?
Yes.
When you answer the call, who, if anyone, was initially on the other end?
Initially, it's Kaylee.
And what, if anything, did Kaylee say to you?
That John didn't come home and Karen wanted to talk to me.
And even in that initial call when you're speaking to Kaylee, what, if anything, do you hear sort of in the background when you're talking?
Karen screaming.
And could you hear what she was screaming?
She was just screaming, Jen, Jen, Jen!
Fairly loudly, is that correct?
Extremely.
Now, at some point, does the defendant get on the phone with you?
She does.
And what, if any, conversation do you have with her about?
She proceeds to scream my name multiple times, and she tells me that John didn't come home, they got into a fight, and that she left him at the waterfall.
And how do you respond?
I had just woken up. I was confused. I didn't know what she was talking about. I was like, what are you talking about? And then she, told me that they had gotten into a fight and she left him there and now where is he? And she was just kept screaming my name over and over. And so then I remembered that Chris Albert had still been at the bar. So I thought, well, maybe John walked home with Chris because Chris lives close to the waterfall.
And so at some point that conversation ended and you recall how that ended?
I told her that I was going to call Julie and see if John had ended up with Chris.
And so you hang up with her, and then what did you do then?
I called Julie Albert.
And did Julie pick up the phone?
She did not.
And as you were calling Julie, did you have any conversation with your husband Matt around that time?
Yes. He, had kind of shot up out of bed when Karen had called, when Kaylee had called because Karen was screaming. And then he was, what's going on? And I said, well, I'm calling Julie because Karen, they got into a fight and I was trying to explain it to him. And he said, what are you talking about? We saw them outside of your sister's house. And at that point, I hung up.
And when you hung up, Julie had not answered yet, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as Miss Reed and your... Is that...
And I muted myself because of the stupid thunder, which is so loud. Can you stop? Man, I'm having a day. Okay. So, what I was saying was that it makes no sense that she thinks that John would have gone to Chris's or would have been with Chris Albert because they lived on the same street. So, if he was going to Chris's, why wouldn't he just go home? You know what I'm saying? That makes no sense. Her lies on this stand, none of them make sense. And then that's after Matt tells her that or somebody else told her that they saw him dropping him off. I don't know. Let's hear what else she has to say.
Someone who had your phone number, did you have her plugged into your phone as a contact before that date of January 29th?
No.
You never had any kind of conversation with her over the phone as far as a text or a phone call or anything? You didn't even have her information?
Correct.
And so after hanging up while calling Julie, what, if anything, did you do then?
And then I'm not sure if I called Kaylee back or if Kaylee called me back.
At some point you get back in touch.
All right, that's good enough for that clip. So this clip I'm going to call More Screaming. See a theme here? Screaming.
So at some point you make your way downstairs, is that right?
Correct.
And then what, if anything, did you hear once you were downstairs?
Screaming.
And where was the screaming coming from?
Out front.
And when you heard that screaming, where did you go?
I ran to my front door.
At some point, did you open your front door?
I opened my front door, correct.
And then what did you see when you opened the front door?
Miss Reed came running up my walkway.
And prior to, during any of the other conversations that you had with Ms. Reed, did you know where she was when you were talking to her?
No.
Obviously, the first call was Kaylee calling from the house. That
Yes.
was the assumption. And then subsequent.
Yes.
And as far as the second call that you were talking about, do you know where she was when she was talking to you then?
The first couple calls, I know she was at the house, and then I don't know.
So was opening your door, hearing the screaming from out front, was that something that surprised
Yes.
you? And when you hear the screaming, if you could just explain to the jury, how loud was the screaming that you were hearing?
Very loud.
And what, if anything, was she saying?
It was more of the, Jen, did I hit him? And then she would yell, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And then she was yelling, we have to go to Fairview.
And in addition to Ms. Reed, what, if anything, else did you see when you were?
So that's a lie because my dog is terrified of the thunder right now. She's usually not scared. It's really loud. So I apologize. You guys can probably hear a lot of it. It's okay, Abbers. Abby is her name. I call her Abbers. Anyways, she's a German Shepherd. Kind of like Chloe. She's got the light color. She's more light colored than dark. Anyways, more screaming. They're trying to paint Karen as just this hysterical screamer and just totally, out of her mind and insane. And it's not coming off like it's making her look bad more than anything, I think.
You opened up the door?
Just,
Ask in a better way. Did
yeah.
you see a vehicle?
Yes.
And where was the vehicle and what did the vehicle look like?
It was in my driveway. I believe the driver door was left open.
And what kind of vehicle was it?
A black Lexus.
Consistent with what you had seen outside of Fairview the night or earlier in the morning?
Yes.
And so as she's coming up your walk towards your front door,
Running, yes.
and then what, if any, conversation did you have with her there in reference to that?
I just said, Karen, I was trying to calm her down. Matt came, I believe, and was yelling down that she was going to wake up the neighborhood. And then she was yelling that we had to go to Fairview. So I told Matt that I was going to go with Karen.
Initially, before that, what were your plans as far as?
Why am I hearing static? I don't I don't know. All right. I was hearing static. I'm like trying to check all my cords. I don't know. Sorry. Okay. Here we go.
I was going to look for John before Miss Reed showed up.
My husband and I were going to go to Tom Beatty's.
Now, once you decide that now you're going with Miss Reed,
So Tom Beatty, gotta interject again. Sorry. Tom Beatty is a friend of John's. He also has a kid who's friends with, I think it's the nephew. Or no. Well, he also has a daughter that is friends with Colin. And Colin, it is rumored, I don't have substantiated information, but I think I've seen it I might have seen a picture. I can't even remember covering this case along, but it is said to have been that Colin made a call inside 34 Fairview around 12:30, which again is that that 12:30, 12:45 period is I really think when it happened to John, more like 12:30, 12:40, and that's why they had to have Colin out of there by 12:15 or whatever time they say, because they wanted him. They didn't want his name in this at all, which makes you wonder why were they protecting Colin so fiercely. It's really interesting. All right, so we're going to move on to the next clip, which I call mudroom shaming. I'm sorry if you're hearing
so Mr.
static.
David, if you could describe to the jury sort of how you, when you come in through that right garage door and you start to go into the house, What is it when you see when you first come into the house, and what is sort of the layout of Mr. O'Keefe's house?
You walk in from the garage and there's a mudroom.
And typically, when you would walk into Mr. O'Keefe's house, what, if anything, would you or anyone else do when they walked into his house?
Take off your shoes.
And why was it?
He didn't want dirt or that morning snow probably getting all over his house.
And so that was a pretty well-known rule for anybody that spent any time at his house on Meadows End.
Yes.
And so when you and Ms. Roberts and Ms. Reed walked into the home that morning, into the mudroom, what did you do? What did Ms. Roberts do? What did Ms. Reed do?
I took off my boots or shoes, whatever I had on. Carrie Roberts took off. Karen just ran straight in the house.
You
Oh
and Ms.
my
Roberts
God,
both
the
took off their
nerve.
shoes, and Ms. Reed then just walked in the house with boots or shoes or whatever she was wearing on.
Yes.
No. The house she lives in, she walked in there with her shoes on? I cannot believe it. The scandal. Wow. What a horrible person Karen is because she walked into her own home with shoes on. I mean, do you see how insane this is? Why did that even need to be brought up in trial? So let's talk now about Karen's hysterical on the scene. This is the next scene. This is
So I run the blankets over to Miss Roberts, and she's kind of lifts him up, put the blankets underneath him, and she's screaming at Miss Reed to get off of Mr. O'Keefe. And they're kind of.
So I guess now Karen is being a detriment to John's recovery because she's on him, trying to warm him up. She ran out of the car, took her, pulled her shirt up and laid her bare chest against his chest to warm his body because that's what you do when you find someone unconscious in the snow. Not go talk really calmly to 911 and go, there's a man passed out in the snow. When you know very well that he's your friend, number one, that you love, because you say that so many times on the stand, but also he's an officer of the law, and no one says that. And if she had said that in her 911 call, which I have reposted on my channel, just a short video of the 911 call, which is the recording from John O'Keefe's answering or his voicemail. When they were searching for John, they were driving around. Karen was calling John's phone, and she saw John while the phone was still ringing for John's voicemail. So she threw the phone in the car as she saw him and ran out to go help him. So that phone caught some of the 911 call. You can hear Karen screaming frantically. She is screaming frantically on the scene. That I will say. As far as the other places where she's just screaming, Jen, 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 I doubt it because she probably wasn't worked up to um, that level of anxiety and nerves because they hadn't found John yet. So of course she was worried, but would you be screaming if you were like, I need to find my boyfriend? I mean, yes, probably, but not like you wouldn't be screaming the other person's name over and over again on the phone. I don't think, unless you really are in shock or panic or something. I don't know. That's my take. I think that it's a lie. I don't think you can trust anything that Gemma Cape says, first of all. And I just think that yeah, it's anything she says is not true and take it for what it is. All right, so then clip is this. Oh, yeah, we still have a few more minutes.
Yelling back and forth. Karen screaming, is he dead? Is he dead? I, at some points, walk over towards the car, Carrie's car, to get away because they're so loud. And I was trying to be calm and get help there for John as fast as possible.
You notice how she puts, I was trying to be calm because everybody who has heard that 911 call is like, how in the world can she be so calm? So that's her excuse. I was trying to be calm. But she, as often as she can, she tries to contribute the fact that Karen was hysterical or Karen was screaming?
Carrie starts yelling about doing CPR. She tells Karen to do mouth to mouth. Karen's yelling because as they start, blood starts coming out of John's mouth.
As far as the CPR that you're talking about?
Yes.
So during this time, the defendant's yelling and you're on the phone with 911, correct?
Yes.
So you're trying to back up or distance yourself a little bit so that you can hear what's going on with the 911 operator and they can hear you.
Yes.
And after you complete that 911 call, what's going on with that?
I go over, and at that point, Carrie asks if I can take over doing the compressions.
And did you do that?
I did, yes.
And at some point after you call 911, to either police or fire or someone responds and arrives on scene, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know about how much time it was in between when you hung up with 911 and when the first responders started to arrive?
From when I hung up, maybe a few minutes. I'm not exactly sure.
And do you recall whether or not it was police or fire who showed up first?
Police.
And is that the officer that was in that video or that cruiser that was just up on the screen as the last?
I didn't see the officer in the video, but I know it was Officer Sarif was the first officer to arrive.
And so then, after the officer arrives, what happened then?
He was trying to figure out what had happened. Karen just ran around screaming my name, Carrie's name. Is he dead? Is he dead? It was on repeat. Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? More officers started to arrive. The EMTs, they began to work on him.
And by him you mean Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
And Mr. O'Keefe's still on the ground and they're working on him there, is that correct?
Yes.
And could you see anything about sort of what they were doing or what was going on with that?
No, I just saw a bunch of them around Mr. O'Keefe.
And then what happened then?
More officers began to arrive. Miss Reed just continued to run around screaming. As more officers and EMT arrived, they asked what happened. One EMT asked, one EMT had asked, his name, his age, things like that. If she knew what happened, Miss Reed stated that she hit him. Besides running around saying, I hit him, did I hit him, could I have done this? Is he dead? Is he dead? At one point, one of the police officers put Miss Reed in the back of her cruiser, and he asked for myself to go over with her, and Carrie came over with us as well.
I'd like to just take you back to when the paramedic is asking for information, biographical information, things like that. You indicated that the defendant said, I hit him, is that correct?
Yes.
That's something that she said once or more than once?
3 times. I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Now, before you had made
Look at that
reference
look
to statement she made.
Look at that look. Let's rewind. Look at that evil look this woman gives to Karen. I am getting staticky. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's really bothering me. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why I'm hearing static. It's annoying. It's just not going to be an easy day. Okay. Forget my mic. We're going to go watch the very last clip. Wait, I think that this
With
one
sort
had
of
more.
qualifiers or questions as far as could I have hit him or did I hit him? Is that what she said at that time when she was speaking to the paramedic?
No, she was earlier. It was could I, did I? When she spoke to the paramedic, it was crystal clear. I hit him.
Now, one of the officers takes her over to the back of a cruiser, is that right?
Yes.
You were over in that area as well?
Yes.
Who, if anyone else, was over in that area?
Miss Roberts.
And while you were over in that area, what was going on?
We were in the back of the police cruiser. Karen was sitting in there. I kind of scooched myself in. Miss Roberts came over. Karen grabbed our hands. She asked us to pray. She looked at her hands and she had blood. She asked us if she could have gotten her period. We told her no, that was John's blood. Then she said, what if he's dead? Promise me you'll take care of the kids. Someone's going to take care of the kids. Then we prayed. Then at the end, they were moving John, and at that point, Karen told Carrie, go over, look, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Over and over. And Carrie said, I'll go over and check on him. And she was yelling, are they working on him? And then at that point, she grabbed my hands and she said, Google hypothermia, Google how long it takes to die in the cold. And so I had my phone out and it was cold and my hands were frozen and I have MS, and I took my phone out while she was screaming and shaking my arm, and I attempted to Google how long does it take to die in the cold.
So that's her little tirade about that. And that's going to be the end of. No, that's not the end of Jen. I thought we were on our last one. What am I doing today? All right, this is our last clip of Jen. This is the last clip. So as you know, or as you can see, they're trying to just make her seem insane and crazy and just hysterical. She's just a crazy woman. This is Cross.
On that morning.
Or Recross. This is Recross. And at this point, Alan Jackson has her quite worked up. They've already talked about the house long to die in the cold search and whatever, so that's already out of the way. But now he's getting under her skin good. So let this play out for a couple minutes.
January 29th, 2022, as you drove to the location and ultimately to 34 Fairview. What ultimately happened? And your testimony was, as you approached, my client was searching frantically for John O'Keefe, correct?
I don't believe I said she was searching frantically for John O'Keefe.
Searching frantically?
She was screaming frantically in the back seat and texting in the back seat.
Was she just sitting there, curled up in the back seat, sucking her thumb, or was she searching out the window?
She was screaming between Kerry and I. So I'm not really sure how she saw John over here when her head is up here screaming and then looking down and texting.
Was the whole point of that trip, Ms. McCabe, to search for John?
It was because she knew where he was.
The whole point of that trip was to look for him, correct?
She directed us to go to 34
No,
Fairview.
the whole point of the trip was to look for John, correct?
At 34 Fairview, where Karen said to go.
And your testimony is that if it hadn't been for Karen jumping out of that truck, you wouldn't have stopped, correct?
Because I wouldn't have seen him. I didn't know he was there. She did.
Yes or no? Was that your statement? If she hadn't gotten out of the car, you wouldn't have stopped.
I don't believe it was stated like that. I believe there was a question and I answered.
And the question was, would you have stopped? And your answer was what?
What was the direct question?
Oh my goodness, Mr. McCabe, it was 5 minutes ago.
Did he ask, did you see something? You like to change words. I just want to be certain.
So, Mr. Jackson, just keep it to questions, not comments.
Oh my God. How does she not admonish John McCabe, but you yell at Alan Jackson for not asking a question? Anyways, that's the end of our clip, but isn't it good? So he got her all riled up, and then you see Jen's true colors for sure on the stand, especially there, saying, she knew where he was. Well, you already testified earlier that she didn't know where he was. She said she couldn't remember anything, and that she was drinking so much she couldn't remember a thing. So which is it? You like to change the story, Ms. McCabe, to fit however you want your narrative to go. It's unbelievable. If you watched her testimony, it's like a kid caught in the cookie jar with the chocolate chips all melted over their face, but they deny till the day they die that they did not take those cookies. But you know better, and you have video of them doing it. They still deny it. It's pretty much how John McCabe is. That's my wrap up of what she's like on this stand. All right, so next we're going to view Carrie Roberts, and she had a little bit different of a style to testify. She didn't get all angry and upset like Jen McCabe did, but I truly feel, and you guys let me know if we're not gonna play the whole Carrie Roberts testimony here, just some portions of it, but if you guys watched all of Carrie Roberts' testimony, let me know what you guys think about it. Do you think she was credible? I mean, for the most part, she comes off credible, in my opinion. She does. But I know the facts of this case really well, and I feel like she has been lied. She either lied or has been lied to, or is being she's part of the collusion. She's part of the coercion of this whole mean girl vibe. She is the next mean mom on the list. So, and I call this clip babysitter with benefits, because that's how Carrie Roberts pretty much describes Karen.
And then through the years that you knew Mr. O'Keefe when you lived in Canton and your time being friends with him, what kind of conversations would you have with Mr. O'Keefe in regards to any sort of relationships or dating or anything like that?
Well, he dated a lot of people.
But
So
as
it
far as
depends.
Your conversations, what if any, sort of role would you have, or what if any, knowledge did you have in reference to the people that you date?
My husband, whenever he would go on a date with somebody, he would have my husband come meet them, sort of say, like, what do you think? And he had a couple of girlfriends that were very nice.
Now, at some point, did you become aware?
He had a couple of girlfriends that were very nice. Notice she didn't say anything about Karen Reed being nice. She didn't say anything about she liked Karen Reed. She didn't say anything about Karen Reed. She just said John had a couple of girlfriends that were nice. And in that statement right there, I believe Carrie Roberts is totally throwing a backhanded compliment, like, or not even a compliment, but throwing shade at Karen, basically saying he had nice girlfriends. You ain't one of them. That was my take on that. What did you guys think? Like I said, she doesn't come off as credible to me as a lot of people have been saying that she is. Like, I listen to other people talk about this, and everybody was saying she did a whole lot different. She was a lot different on the stand than Jen McCabe, and she's also her demeanor was just totally different, and that is true. But once you watch Jen McCabe's testimony, and Alan Jackson pretty much eviscerates her and lets the jury know that she's already begun the collusion with Carrie Roberts the very night of this incident and started contacting her right away for for an update on John's health, which I don't think that that was true. I think it was to keep her close and to make sure that this little secret of all of theirs doesn't go anywhere. That's what I think, and that's really, really what it looks like.
Of a person by the name Karen.
Yes.
And when was it, and how was it that you first came to know that person?
John called me and said, Karen and I are going to stop by because we had people over. And I said, who is Karen? Because I didn't know if he was going to bring someone from high school and surprise me with a random, I had never heard of her. And he said, you know who Karen is? The girl I'm dating. I said, nope, but okay.
So if John says you've heard of her, then you probably have, but you're acting all dumb and stupid, like, no, I've never heard of Karen Reed. And you guys Karen and John dated years prior and then rekindled the relationship in this go around. They had been together about 2 years or so before he succumbed to his injuries in the snow. So they were back together. So he probably told you, Carrie Roberts, that he was back together with this girl, Karen, and you just didn't want to hear it because for whatever reason, all of these mean moms have a crazy possessiveness over John, I'll say. Each and every one of them has a weird possessiveness over John. These mean moms who are all married, I think most of them are married or, with someone, but yet they seem to have this weird possessive thing going on with John, even though John's not theirs. John's in a relationship with Karen, but I feel like these women didn't necessarily respect that. And they liked to hang around with John. John was a very good looking single man with a good job. He's this Boston police officer taking in his niece and nephew. Oh my God, it breaks anybody's heart. What a good man he is. And I'm not saying this in jest, I'm saying it for real. Like any woman would have been happy to be with such a man. And I think a lot of these women, especially because maybe some of them grew up with John and knew John for a long time, they feel like they own John and they have some say as to who John dates. Get out of here. It's John's dating life is John's business. This is what it seems like to me anyways.
Okay. And then they came over that night.
And
I don't remember who Karen
do you
was.
recall when about that was?
I think it was sometime in July.
In July, what year?
What are we, 2020? 2020?
So sometime shortly after sort of the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship, if any, with Karen?
She was like another person that took care of the kids. She took care of Kaylee and Patrick a lot, so I would coordinate.
She was like another person who took care of the kids. Well, that just sounds like a babysitter with benefits, doesn't it? I mean, she's living with John, practically. She had her own place, but she was still, most days out of the week, she was staying with John. She slept there. She had her own or her own house, condo. I don't know what she had. She had her own place. She makes good money. She's a professor and had a good career in finance. So she had her own home, but we learned about her wanting to sell it in some text messages with Higgins.
With her if Ryan and Patrick were going to go to the golfing range, or if Ryan was going to go with them to the Red Sox game, that kind of thing. We weren't do lunch or hang out like girlfriends.
They weren't girlfriends.
Were there any occasions where you had sort of socialization or go out as couples or anything like that with Mr. O'Keefe?
No, they came over our house one time, and then we'd do baseball tournaments down the Cape, and we'd all get together, but the four of us never went out.
And just for clarity purposes, do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
Yep.
Ooh, look. Ooh, that was a perfect pause. Look at that. Yup. And she gives her that side eye. I didn't even mean to do that, but I meant to totally, because I did want to show you guys the side eye, because I did notice that on another round of watching this, because I've watched this testimony over and over again. All right, so that's a good pause. So next clip I'm going to call "She Was Very Frantic." So notice she keeps saying frantic, and Jen kept saying she was screaming.
Socialization or go out as couples or anything like that with Mr. O'Keefe?
No, they came over our house one time, and then we'd do baseball tournaments down the Cape, and we'd all get together, but the four of us never went out.
And just for clarity purposes, do you see Ms. Reed in the courtroom today?
Yep. I do.
Identify her as to where she's seated or an article of clothing she's wearing?
Say that again?
Could you identify as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She is seated at that front table, and she has a black and white suit jacket.
On prior occasions.
I don't have the right link. It is 307.
John's dead. Carrie.
Daughter received maybe a pretty simple question as far as it goes, but just with reference to any prior phone calls that you or your daughter received with that number that you programmed into Karen Reed. When you spoke to someone by calling or receiving a call from that contact, who was on the other end of the call?
Karen Reed.
Okay. So you answered the phone sometime right around 5 a.m. and can you describe to the jury sort of what the content of that conversation was?
I answered the phone, and she said, "John's dead. Carrie. And then she hung up.
And as far as her in the conversation, did you say anything or get a chance to say anything before she hung up?
No.
And when she's speaking to you and saying those words to you over the phone, how loudly is she saying those words?
Very loud. She woke my husband, who was sleeping.
By the time that the phone rings and you pick it up, your husband's sleeping.
So she's loud, she's screaming, she's crazy, she's frantic, all these awful words that they keep choosing to describe her as. I mean, it gives you this bad impression. I just think it's just piling on.
Correct?
Yes.
And then afterwards he's what?
Correct.
Now, what happened then?
Then I got out of bed, and Kurt said, "What was that?" I said, I don't know. Something's happening. And I think I started getting dressed at that point, because I don't know if I started getting dressed at that point or after she called back again. I tried to call her, I think a couple times back, to be like, what is going on? Finally, she called me back again, and she said, I'm afraid John might be dead. He might have gotten hit by a plow. He did not come home last night. I was not supposed to stay in Canton last night, and he would never leave Kaylee alone. I think something happened.
And do you recall earlier in the day, the 28th, having any communication with either Mr. O'Keefe or Ms. Reed?
I did with John. He texted me.
Do you recall generally what that was about?
My son got into a scuffle with some boy at school, and Patrick wasn't in school at the time. I think he went to a doctor's appointment, but Patrick got wind of it, so John was calling to see if my son was okay.
Now, turning back to, again, that morning on the 29th, you called Ms. Reed a couple times. She didn't answer. Is that correct?
Correct.
And at some point she called you back?
Correct.
And about how long was it after that initial phone call that you had where she hung up? How much time had elapsed between that call and the next one?
I don't know, maybe 5 minutes.
And so when she calls back, she makes those statements to you that you just testified about, and upon her making those statements, what, if anything, was your response?
Then she said she checked Kaylee's phone to see if John had called. And I said, okay, where are you now? And she said, I'm driving. Can I come to your house? Will you drive my car? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything. We drank so much from last night, I don't remember anything. So there's more
hey, she drank so much. This, um, the witnesses are trying to make it appear like, oh, she's so drunk. She doesn't know where she was that night. She doesn't know where she went. I think this is part of the plan, part of the narrative that they came up with.
I said, then she said she checked Kaylee's phone to see if John had called. And I said, okay, where are you now? And she said, I'm driving. Can I come to your house? Will you drive my car? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything. And I said, you need to go home and be with Kaylee if she's there by herself. I'll go look for him or something of that nature. Because I said, you're going to get a DUI. You were drinking all night last night and you don't remember anything. You shouldn't be driving.
All right, so next question, please.
When you were talking
Yeah, that shouldn't have come in. She should have struck that, but she didn't. All right. So let's move on to the next clip I have where she calls John O'Keefe a neat freak.
his home, was there a particular way in which he kept it? Whether there,
Neat freak.
I'm sorry, what was that?
He was a neat freak.
Okay.
And as you enter into
What's a neat freak?
this garage, what if any access would you then have to inside the home?
There's a set of stairs and it brings you right into like the mudroom, which leads into the kitchen.
When you would go over to Mr. O'Keefe's house,
More mudroom shaming.
Stairs and it brings you right into like the mudroom, which leads into the kitchen.
when you would go over to Mr. O'Keefe's house on this occasion or any other occasion, what any rules or preferences would Mr. O'Keefe have with regard to footwear?
You did not wear footwear in the house. You took your shoes off.
And is that something that applies to people who live there as well as people who are visiting?
Yes.
And how would you describe that a relatively strict rule?
Yes.
Now, Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could.
All right, next
I'd like
clip
to
about he
publish a
was a
portion
neat
of,
freak.
Exhibit 6.
Same clip or same set of clips here.
And when you came into the house that morning, you went into the mud. What, if anything, did you do with your shoes, and what, if anything, did you observe Mr. Cave and the defendant do with their shoes?
Jen and I both had taken our shoes off in the sort of steps in the garage before we entered into the mudroom. We took our shoes off, and Karen just walked in.
And Mr. Chairman, if you could just play the video.
Karen walked in with her shoes again. What? Not again. It was just the one time, but they're both just indignant about it. How dare she? My goodness. All right. So up next, I mean, these people. This is taxpayer money at work. Mr. Lawley prosecuting this case. This next clip is called The Dance Instructor.
Ms. Roberts, as you're driving from Mr. O'Keefe's house to this address on Fairview Road that you've never been to before, what's going on inside the car?
Karen was frantic. She wouldn't put her seatbelt on, and I was getting nervous because we're driving in a blizzard.
She called her frantic again. She calls her frantic I don't know how many times. And Jen McCabe calls, or it says she's screaming multiple times. So I feel like everybody had like their little role, their little narrative that they had to get out. You could see with Jen during her exam, during her direct, she kept trying to say like the broken tail light, she kept trying to get in like certain pieces of things that she wanted to say. I feel like they all had their little role to play. And this is the dance instructor's role. Let's see.
She kept leaning in between the two seats. I think at some point she was texting in the back seat, and then she'd be leaning. She was just frantic the whole morning.
And as far as her screaming, do you recall anything specifically that she was screaming, or what, if any, sort of conversation was going on in the car as you were driving?
There was some conversation about a woman I didn't know that was Bella's mom, and she said Bella's mom never liked me. I think Bella lived near Jen's sister, maybe. I don't know. Some conversation about Bella's mom, and Karen said she didn't like me.
And do you recall where you were in your travels when that topic of conversation came up?
No, I don't recall.
Now, in reference to following that, what, if anything, did you say in regards to any other sort of
Any other what?
Following that conversation in regard to Bella's mom, who you didn't know, what, if anything, did you say or introduce into the conversation?
Fairview Road runs along Spring Street, I think it is. Spring Lane. So Spring Lane and Fairview are both off of Chapman Street, and there was a woman he dated that lived on Spring Lane. So when Jen was telling me where her sister's house was, I said, I don't know where Fairview is. And she said, it's near Spring Lane. And I said, oh, where the dance instructor lived. John had once dated a dance instructor. And then Karen said, do you think he could have gone there? Do you think that's where he could have been? No, I was just...
So there's the dance instructor that's coming in, that ex-romantic partner of John's, let's say, who has nothing to do with the situation right now because she's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with anything, but they try to plant that little bit of jealousy in Karen, and then I think Carrie and um, Jen were trying to begin the narrative first thing when they started picking up Karen and talking about um, what was going on. I think they were driving around influencing her to think that she might have hit him. I think that these things were put in Karen's head. If she did say these things about, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? I think it was put in her head by these two women. And I think Carrie Roberts is so much more involved than we all thought so in the first place. Like, I think she has a whole lot more to do with the cover up portion of it. During, the before trial, before all this stuff came out from court records and what we knew about Carrie Roberts, I really couldn't tell if she was in on it or if she was just some ig- blissfully ignorant individual who just happened to be along for the ride that morning because Karen called her. Well, now that I've heard her testify, I honestly think that she and Jen McCabe were in cahoots together trying to tell Karen to shut up and stop being so crazy and frantic because nobody likes a crazy and frantic woman. How dare we have emotions? Ah. Yeah. So, anyways, um, just very interesting how it all seems to unfold, and I just think Carrie has a lot more to do with it than we all thought.
Using it as a reference point, she said it's near Spring Lane, and I knew that the dance instructor lived on Spring Lane.
And just to be clear, when you say the dance instructor, this would be for his niece, Kaylee?
Correct.
And you indicated that the two of them, being Mr. O'Keefe and the dance instructor, had dated at some point in the past, right?
Yes.
How long ago was that?
Oh, it was when Kaylee was little. She was probably like 5.
So almost 10 years before this date that you're driving. Now, as you're driving along and driving down Fairview, what is it that you're doing? What, if anything, do you observe Mr. McCabe doing? And then what, if anything, do you observe the defendant?
Well, we were looking for John walking or wherever he may be. So I'm driving and looking on both sides, and I think Jen was looking on both sides. And Karen she would be in the back seat, then she'd be in between us, then she'd be in the back seat, and then in between us.
And so as you came down the hill on Fairview, what, if anything, what happened then?
Jen said, my sister's house is right up here. And all of a sudden, Karen said, there he is, there he is. Let me the F out of this car. And she started kicking the door.
And how was she kicking the door?
With her feet. How was she kicking the door?
How hard was she kicking?
Pretty hard. I mean, she wanted to get out of the car, but it was locked because once you start driving, the back door's locked. So I looked over and I didn't see anything. And I looked at Jen and I said, she's crazy. And I unlocked the door and I sat back and watched. And she ran over to a mound of snow.
And so as the time you're driving down the road, have you seen anything?
She's crazy. She just found her boyfriend in the snow and she's running to him. But she's crazy. She's crazy, ladies and gentlemen. She would have you think she's crazy. All right, this next clip I like to call She Had Blood on Her Hands.
Keith is being taken from where he was located. We found him in the ambulance. What happens then? What goes on from that?
At some point, Officer Good told Karen to calm down because she was frantic. And at some point, Jen and Karen were in the back of a police cruiser to warm up. I was standing outside watching the ambulance because I could see in through the ambulance that they were moving things and working on them.
And so what, if any, conversation did you have with the defendant or Ms. McCabe in reference to what you were seeing through the back of the ambulance?
I said, they're working on him. They're working on him. And at one point, Karen grabbed the front of my jacket and screamed in my face and said, are they working on him? Is he alive? And I said, they're working on him. They're working on him. They wouldn't be working on him if he was dead. And then she had us hold hands and pray. And then at some point, she had blood on her hands, and she told us she had her period. So I think she was just in a state of shock, maybe.
And
We said, no, that's not your blood. That's John's.
Do we believe this story? I don't. I do not believe that Karen said that. Oh, I think Dan's home. The dogs are all excited because their daddy's home. Anyways, so that's the end of that one. We've got two more for Carrie. And these are shorter ones too, so don't worry, we don't have a whole lot longer.
Initially, when you left, who, if anyone, left with you?
I left with Karen Reed.
And as you're leaving your car, you're driving, is that correct?
Yes.
Where's Miss Reed in the car at that point?
Say it again?
Where was Miss Reed in your car at that point?
In the passenger seat.
And as you were leaving, what, if anything, were the two of you doing or talking about, or what was going on when you left that first time?
As we were leaving, she was saying to me, if anything happens to John, I'm going to kill myself. You need to take care of these kids.
And how did you respond to that?
He's not going to die. No one's doing anything of that nature. Or something of that nature, I said.
And as far as you're driving away, Chapman, and you're facing towards Cedar Crest, is that right?
Yes.
And so when you left, are you following in that sort of same direction towards Cedar Crest?
I took a right onto Cedar Crest.
And then where did you go from there?
And then I got to Dedham Street, and I went to take a right. And then Officer Good let me go to pick up the O'Keefes to take them. I had to give him my phone number so that he could get in touch with me if he needed to. So he did call, and he said, do you have Miss Reed with you? And I said, yes. And he said, please bring her back. Her parents have called in a suicide. They said she's saying she's suicidal, so they wanted to be sectioned.
And so coming back to that in a moment, but before you went left the scene, you hadn't talked to any police officers or anything at that time, correct?
No, other than my name and phone number, but no.
So you gave them your information and then said, I have to go pick up the O'Keefes.
Yes.
So you get that call from Officer Good, and then you come back to the house, is that right?
Yes.
And during any of that time, you recall the defendants, I know you mentioned she spoke to Erin O'Keefe. Was there anybody else that the defendant spoke to or talked to while you were with her in the car?
She spoke to her mother. And then I ended up taking the phone and speaking to her mother, and I gave her my phone number, and I said, I'm going to go to the hospital. She said, please make sure she does not have her purse. She has medication in her purse I don't want her to take.
And then when you arrived back at the scene, what happened then?
She just got out of the car and walked to the ambulance.
And who, if anyone, did she walk, and by she you mean the defendant?
I'm sorry, yes.
And who, if anyone, did the defendant walk from your car to the ambulance with?
She just walked, I think she just walked by herself. I had her phone because I had been talking to her mother. So then one of the first responders came over and said, do you have her phone? And I said, yes. Her mother said, make sure she does not have her purse.
Make sure she doesn't have her purse because she had medication in there. This is all coming from Carrie, mind you. So how much do you believe Carrie? And Carrie has a puppet master named Jen. So how much do we believe Jen? It's just none of it makes sense to me. This last clip of Carrie is called You Just Left Him?
From Canton to Braintree, you spoke to Ms. Camerano, correct?
Yes.
And during either that drive or the subsequent drive from Braintree to Brockton, who, if anyone else, did you speak to over the phone?
And Karen called me repeatedly from the ambulance, asking if I was going to come to the hospital. Then she called when the O'Keefes were in the car and said she dropped him off at a party. And Mrs. O'Keefe said, you just left him. And Mr. O'Keefe said, leave her alone. She's been through enough. She called a few times while we were on the ride. And then she called a lot when we were at the hospital, asking if I knew anything, if he was dead, is he dead? She would hang up and then call back, hang up and then call back.
And if you know about how many times was it?
At least 10.
And that same sort of phraseology that she was using on scene as far as this is dead, she repeated that in the phone calls at the hospital?
Yes.
Now, once you arrive at the hospital and you're able to clean up a little bit, where did you go from there? What happened?
I went to the chapel and I said a prayer. And then I went in and talked to Dawn's cousin, and she said that Dr. Rice was going to ask to meet with the family.
All right. Now she gets all emotional. I guess I buy her emotion. I just don't buy the rest of her testimony. I do believe she's sad for losing John, but I think she knows more than she's letting on. Interestingly, the defense did not question Carrie Roberts, and the reason they didn't question her, I believe, is because they made it clear that Jen McCabe is the puppet master, and anything that Carrie says is coming from Jen McCabe pulling the strings. So we don't trust John McCabe, we don't trust Carrie Roberts. That's what I took of it. Because they got up and they're like, no questions. And it was great. It was so like, you're irrelevant, is what that felt like to me. Like, you and your testimony do not matter. So, Carrie Roberts, you're irrelevant. This next clip we're going to call The Godfather. We are now moving on to Laura Sullivan of the Sullivan Sisters.
The jury sort of, how did you come
So,
to know?
real quick, just a little brief background information. So Laura Sullivan, friends with John. I am going to let you hear the whole how he became the Godfather and all that, how she knew him. So it is kind of an emotional story. So I'll play that for you. But she's also a mean mom. So I mean, we've got to remember that. These are all mean moms. Like, they're secretly nice to Karen, but they're talking crap about her behind her back, as most mean moms do. All right. So the reason she fits in is that they all went on this Aruba trip. It was this according to Laura, who helped organize it. They stayed in the Renaissance Hotel in Aruba, which I believe that's actually where they stayed, but her sister testifies to a completely different name of a hotel. So, whatever. She also testifies to 60 people being in attendance for this big group for these timeshares. Who has enough hotel rooms for a timeshare of 60 for 60 guests? I don't know, but that's what she says. I don't know how much I believe that, but especially since the sister's like, oh, I don't know, there were like 30 people there. So, they kind of don't corroborate there on that part of their testimony. But the two of them are here, Laura Sullivan and her sister Marietta, to basically show bad character evidence. Even though bad character evidence is not supposed to be allowed in, there are certain stipulation or certain instances where I guess they will allow certain things to come in if it is for a different purpose. So the judge will read her little instructions and you'll see. All right, the Godfather.
I met John in May of 2013. I met him at a bar in South Boston he was with Pat Rogers at the time. Post meeting John, I started dating Pat, and my son's father is Pat Rogers. And
Stop you there just
yep.
a moment. So as far as John O'Keefe and your son's father, Pat Rogers, did you know or did you come to know sort of what they did for a living?
Yeah, they're both Boston police officers.
And did you know sort of what the relationship was beyond co-workers of Mr. O'Keefe and his brother?
Yeah. They were best friends.
So at some point following that meeting in 2013, you began to date Mr. Rogers, is that right?
Correct.
And what happened?
So in July of 2013, I became pregnant. And in November of 2013, Pat committed suicide.
So I'm going to stop here and briefly interject and say I heard on Turtle Boy live show that Pat Rogers was John O'Keefe's partner, I believe. Partner, like his cop partner guy. You know, and they have partners. So I believe that's how, these guys all met and whatnot. But what Turtle Boy had said on his show was that it's a sad story. Pat took his own life, but before he did, like, he found out he had multiple girls that were expecting his babies. So, not just her, I think, but multiple women. So that's a little bit scary for a man, especially multiple women at once. Yikes.
how would you describe sort of the relationship with Mr. O'Keefe, or how did it evolve?
So in November of 2013, I was on a work trip, and I had not had the best conversation with Pat. It just didn't feel right. And I called John and said, you need to go find him. I can't get a hold of him. He won't answer his phone. And so John left his nephew's birthday party and called a bunch of people on the way. And ultimately, Pat was found in the basement of his house. And John was there immediately following, but he was the one that found people to go find Pat. Immediately following that, John never really left my side, as a support system.
And that's the kind of person John was. And that's why all these women were like weirdly possessive of him, I think, because he was just a really good guy. And I don't know. But anyways, so that's good for that clip. What's the next one? We're going to call this this clip we're calling, did we even finish? Did they call him the Godfather?
You had your son.
Yeah.
And before or after that, at some point, did you have a conversation with Mr. O'Keefe in regard to your son?
It was his birthday, December of 2013, and we went to the Playwright, which is where we had all met. And I gave him a card and I asked him to be Ben's godfather, and he said yes.
And in relation to your son, was Mr. O'Keefe, was John involved in your son's life?
Yes, very much so.
And how so?
He was every birthday, Christmas. He was always in contact. He was the first person in my delivery room after I gave birth. He was a constant. He was a connection to Pat, and always making sure that Ben was taken care of in the sense of being there to tell stories or what have you from his relationship with Pat.
And through sort of his relationship with you and your son, Mr. O'Keefe also become familiar with your family as well?
Yeah. Yep.
And in regard to your family, was there some kind of term, or how would they refer to Mr. O'Keefe?
The Godfather. He was.
That was his nickname.
He was called the Godfather to almost everybody.
The Godfather. All right. Next is bathroom shaming. And this is still Laura Sullivan shaming Karen Reed. Here we
He said Karen would be joining him as well.
And at that point, at some point subsequent to that, you knew him to be referring to Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
At that point, had you met Karen Reed? Did you know who that was?
I had not. I knew that they were dating, but I had never met Karen, no.
And in addition to himself, it would have been Mr. O'Keefe, Ms. Reed, the defendant, and his niece and nephew, Patrick and Taylor?
Correct, yes.
And if you know, in relation to your son, as far as Mr. O'Keefe's nephew, Patrick, where are they in relation as far as age?
They're like three years apart. 3 years apart.
I don't know why that matters.
Now, when you have that phone conversation with Mr. O'Keefe, what, if any, interest does he show as far as going through?
After asking a couple questions, I could hear Karen in the background, and he put Karen on the phone, and that was the first time I had spoken to her. He basically said, just talk to her so you can answer her questions.
Do you recall what kind of questions they were, or what it was about?
She was interested in the room setup, how many people could sleep in a room, and how the room is set up. You have a king-size bedroom, and then there's a kitchen area, and then there's a living room that has a pull-out couch. And I explained that it's a 4-person occupancy room, and you could get a roll-away bed as well.
And following that conversation, when was the next time, if at all, that you had any conversation with Mr. O'Keefe and or Ms. Reed in regard to the room?
So during that conversation, Karen mentioned that she needed her own bathroom and she needed her own space, and that she wanted 2 rooms. And so I put them in contact with a woman that I knew had 2 rooms for them to, figure that piece out. I don't handle any of that. I put people in contact with whoever owns the rooms. I put them in contact with the woman who had the 2 rooms, and I know that they had, paid her relatively quickly. I mentioned to John that the rooms, I couldn't promise that the rooms would be next to each other, and they weren't. They were on opposite.
All right, that's enough. But do you see how dare Karen want her own bathroom? So Karen has, like I've already said, she's got MS. She suffers from colitis, which is a gastrointestinal problem where you deal with a lot of inflammation and a lot of bathroom breaks, I'm sure, and you spend a lot of time in the bathroom. So I'm sure she wants, if she needs to, she wants the ability to have her own private space for that. And she's got the money to do that. So why is that a shameful thing? Let her do that. I don't know why these women, all these mean moms, just are shaming Karen for being different than them. They're all these working, um, or not even working. Some of them aren't working. Jen McCabe doesn't work. They're all mothers and define themselves that way. Karen is not a mom. She's filling in almost as a stepmom, but she's not their stepmom. And she's really just the girlfriend of their uncle, you know? So it's an odd place for Karen to be in that household. And then you've got all these catty, possessive women over John for no reason. They just want to be mean. They're just mean girls that grew up and moved to Canton, or they grew up in Canton. I don't know. Most of these people are like townies. They've been there forever. All right. What's the next clip? The next clip is um. So my title for this clip is "This Evil Woman Paid the Bill and She Wouldn't Even Let Us Pay Her Back." Oh, what an evil woman.
Order people have what they have. And at the end of the evening, as far as the bill comes at some point, correct?
Correct.
And what if anything?
This is now, they're in Aruba, and these are events happening now in Aruba while they're on this vacation. Before it was planning the vacation, now they're on the vacation.
Karen had paid the bill prior to us receiving it.
And what any reaction did you or anyone have in regard to that?
The entire table was kind of taken aback, said it wasn't necessary, wanted to Venmo or give cash or something along those lines, and she declined, saying that she was honored to be there and wanted to pay for it.
What a bitch. How dare she? How dare she want to pay the bill for everybody? How dare she be generous with you guys? All she wants to do is fit in with you people, and you're just all rude, judgmental, catty witches.
Turning your attention to the following day, what, if anything, do you recall about the next day being, that would have been, 31st, is that correct?
Yes.
So turning your attention to December 31st, 2021, what, if anything, do you recall about that day in specific regard to Mr. O'Keefe and Mr.
John was very vocal on the 30th on how he just wanted to sit in the pool and watch the Alabama game.
And he was a pretty big Alabama fan, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, next clip is called Marietta Sullivan in an Empty Cabana.
And brother or sister?
I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
And with reference to your younger sister, what's her name?
Marietta.
And how much younger than you is Marietta?
She's 10 years younger than me.
And was Marietta Sullivan, was she coming in on that day as well?
She was.
And do you recall about what time it was that she arrived or that she came to the hotel? When was the first time you saw her?
It's tough to remember, but I want to say everybody showed up on one of the first or second flights that came out of Boston, so I'd say she was there by 1 p.m.
And if you recall, what, if any, plans were there as far as dinner was concerned on that evening in New Year's Eve?
So what we tend to do is book reservations, and if people are interested in joining, they can join us. And that night we had approximately 40 people going to have dinner on the beach at Moomba Beach around, I want to say it was like 7 o'clock. We had our reservations for.
And did Mr. O'Keefe and defendant Ms. Reed join you for dinner that evening?
They did not know.
Now, let me take a step back just for a moment. As far as Ms. Reed was concerned, prior to your arrival in Aruba, did you have her phone number, or did you have any way of contacting her?
No.
And when was it that you got Ms. Reed's phone number?
John had added her and I and Chloe to a group text the night that we had gone out for dinner to make sure.
I think Chloe is her daughter, who must be friends with the niece. I'm not sure, but I think that's she references Chloe twice in her beach hazards. I don't care about that weather app. She mentions twice. What did I just say? She mentions it twice.
Or that we could all communicate with Chloe to make sure the kids were okay.
Chloe's
So
name.
you got her phone number in relation to watching kids as far as Patrick and Kaylee and your children and everybody else?
Correct.
Now, if you recall, you got out to dinner, you think the reservation was about 7 or so. Do you recall about what time it was that you got back to the hotel?
I want to say it was around 9:30, 10 o'clock by the time my group got back. I know there was a couple different seatings. So we probably got back around like 9:30, 10 o'clock.
And as far as your group was concerned, your sister Marietta, was she within your group that went out to dinner?
Yes. Yep.
And beyond your younger sister Marietta, did you have other sort of immediate family with you on this trip as well?
My mother was with us as well.
And with regard to your sister Marietta and your mother, what, if anything, was there as far as where were each of them staying?
So they had their own room. I think it was a couple away from us on the 5th floor.
Is that the top floor as far as this hotel is
Yes.
Now, once you arrived back from dinner,
We ring in the new year.
back to the hotel, and you went at some point to the pool area. Your sister Marietta, do you know where she went?
She actually, when we got back from dinner, she went up to her room with my mom and essentially put my mom to bed because she didn't want to be up anymore. But she went to go change as well.
Now, when you came down to the pool area, as far as Mr. O'Keefe and or Ms. Reed was concerned, did you see them in that area?
I saw John, I want to say around 10:30-ish. I don't know the exact time. It was definitely before midnight.
And where in relation to the hotel did you see him at 10:30?
He was standing behind me at the pool bar.
And at some point does your sister come out to the pool area after putting your mother to bed?
Yeah, so right before I saw John at the pool bar, I saw my sister. She came out and she was visibly upset.
And, Your Honor, in regard to the instruction that you would request about this, maybe.
All right, thank you. So, jurors, you're about to hear testimony about certain
Or she gives an instruction that it's not appropriate at this time. So
conduct
I'm gonna
crimes
skip
by
through
you
it.
has been charged here. But and the nature and for how it goes. And Mr. Lally,
Correct.
And do you know where? Now, with regard.
I made at sidebar previously. So, go ahead, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Now, with regard to at some point your sister comes out to the pool area where you were, is that right?
Correct.
And do you know where Mr. O'Keefe was at that point?
I do not know.
And when your sister comes out to the pool area, what happened?
She said,
Yeah, that's sustained. I thought you were doing something else.
When your sister comes out to the pool area, how would you describe her demeanor when she comes out?
No, I'll allow that.
she was frustrated.
And at some point, did you have a conversation, without regard to what the conversation was, at some point did you have a conversation with her about something that had just happened?
Yes.
Now, following that conversation with your sister, at some point subsequent to that, Mr. O'Keefe come back out to the pool area?
After I spoke with her, yes, he came out to the pool area.
And do you know about how long a period of time it was between the time that your sister came out to the pool area and Mr. O'Keefe came out to the pool area?
I mean, I would say approximately 20 minutes, but I don't really know exact timing.
Now, when Mr. O'Keefe came back out, did you have any conversation with him?
I did.
And can you describe that conversation?
All right, is this the instruction that you were talking about instead of the other one? All right, so jurors, I have another instruction for you. So you're about to hear evidence of statements made by John O'Keefe. Is that accurate now, Mr. Lally?
Yes.
All right. These statements are being admitted only for a limited purpose of establishing John O'Keefe's state of mind. You're not to consider this testimony as proof that the defendant has a bad character or propensity to commit crimes. The testimony of witnesses recounting conversations with Mr. O'Keefe can only be used as they go to the defendant's motive or intent on January 28th or 29th.
And Karen have words. And he said, I don't know.
The heck? Why did that just skip?
The testimony of witnesses recounting conversations with Mr. O'Keefe can only be used as they go to the defendant's motive or intent on January 28th or 29th.
And Karen have words.
What happened? Why did that skip?
And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, that's not what Etta said. And I asked him if everything was okay. And at that time, his phone was lighting up, and it looked like calls and texts. And it said Karen on his phone.
After you make that observation, what if anything?
I think they edited out a portion of what John said here. Weird. I don't know.
I asked him if he needed to take it, and he said, yes, she's crazy. I got to take care of this.
Again, she's crazy. Again with the craziness. Karen's crazy, and all you women who are all possessive of him should just deal with it.
And was that the last time that you saw him on New Year's Eve?
It is.
Now, turning your attention to the following day, New Year's Day, did you see either Mr. O'Keefe or Ms. Reed at all on that day?
I did not. I saw the children, but we didn't see them that day, no.
Now, turning your attention to the following day, being January 2nd, what was sort of the plan as far as what was going on that day?
Our hotel has a private island. The hotel we stay at has a private island, and we rented all 8 of the cabanas between the 60 of us that were there. And when the cabanas went on sale, I had reached out to John and asked him if he wanted me to get him one. And he said, sure. So I booked one for him, and he paid me for that cabana. So we all went out that morning, and it was probably around 10 o'clock in the morning, and they weren't there yet. And so I sent him a text, and I said, are you coming, or do you want me to sell this cabana because there was other, couples there. At least he could have made, the money back. And he asked me who was there. And I said, to everybody. And I named off a couple names. I'm not really sure. But I said, everybody's here.
And when you said that, how did Mr. O'Keefe respond?
He said, well, apparently I made out with your sister the other night, according to Karen.
Now, is that the first time that you had heard that?
Yes.
So fair to say whatever you had heard from your sister on December 31st was not that?
No, I'll allow that.
Correct.
And what was your reaction when Mr. O'Keefe told you?
I'll allow it.
I was shocked. I immediately found my sister and said, did you make out with John?
Sustained.
Now, when you went to talk to your sister, who was it that your sister was with when you went to talk to her about that?
I don't recall who was standing near her. Maybe my mom. I don't know.
As far as your sister was concerned at that time, was she dating someone?
Yes.
And the person that she was dating, was that person on the trip as well?
He was, yes.
And was that person that she was dating was on the trip as well? Were they at the commanders on that day that you met?
They were, yes.
Now, as far as you have some conversation in regard to your sister, and then at some point you go back and have further conversation with Mr. O'Keefe.
Yeah, I said I texted him back. I said, I just talked to Etta. She said, absolutely not. That did not happen.
That's sustained. I'll strike that.
Now, at some point after that exchange, did Mr. O'Keefe and or Ms. Reed and or the kids come out to the cabana area?
They did, yes.
And at any point, how would you describe sort of how Mr. O'Keefe and or Ms. Reed was acting when they came out to the cabana?
Karen immediately went in the water. I just recall her being like floating in the ocean for a good chunk of the day. John was hopping around from the different cabanas talking to people. One of my favorite pictures of him is with my son from that day.
Do you have any?
And what did these girls ever do to make Karen feel like she fit in with them? I wonder. Like, what made Karen want to not hang out with you guys that day? What made her want to have distance from you guys? Because that's what it appears to be.
Conversation with Mr. O'Keefe once he came out to the cabana area?
No, we kind of just kept it light. We didn't really talk about anything that had happened. I was just kind of trying to stay out of it for now.
And following sort of the cabana situation or the cabana day, what happened then?
Suppose that day, I think I saw John one other time. I saw him in the pool. It was the one time that him and I were alone. He didn't seem like he was himself.
I'll allow it.
He seemed distant, and I asked him if he was okay. And he kind of just, shrugged it off. And I said, are you happy? And he kind of, just rolled his eyes and shrugged it off. I said, well, something along the lines of life is too short to not be happy. And he goes, well, Laura, it is what it is. And I did ask him if he wanted to talk about it. I said, do you want to talk about it? And he's like, not really.
These women.
So following that exchange in the pool area, when was the next time that you saw them?
I'd spoken to him. We all went on the Jolly Pirate. We had all bought tickets in advance. So we had basically rented the whole boat for everybody to go. Had bought 4 tickets, and we had gotten a bus from our hotel. And he didn't show up for the bus and wasn't answering my calls or my texts. And then we finally got down to where the boat was. The boat was about to leave, and he messaged me. He's like, not going to make it. The kids slept late. And so I didn't think anything of it. Then after that, I saw him and Karen the night before they left. And they ended up leaving a day or two early so that the kids could get back to school.
And when you saw them, where was that in relation to the hotel?
Right outside the hotel is a marketplace that has a bunch of restaurants and arcade. I was sitting at the 5 o'clock somewhere bar that looks into the arcade with my best friend Val, and my friends Dave and Laura and Karen and John walked up.
What, if any, conversation did you have with either Mr. O'Keefe or the defendant at that time?
Karen grabbed me and she said, hey, I'm sorry. I thought I saw something that I didn't, and I would like to pay for some of your sister's room.
And how did you respond to that?
I said it's absolutely not necessary. Just an apology will do.
And did she persist in wanting to pay for the room?
She did.
And how so?
She just said, I will apologize, but something along the lines of, I want to pay for some of her room. Can I just have her room number? I don't remember if I gave her the room number or not. I don't really know.
You know if you did. You know if she paid for the room or not. I would like to know if Karen actually did pay for the room. So Marietta and John were maybe looking a little handsy. John was very sloppy drunk, according to Sullivan girls. And she was just guiding him back to his room. So Marietta will testify too. But it didn't appear that way to Karen. It looked like they were a lot more intimate at that moment. So a fight ensued, or not a fight, but some verbal altercations took place. A verbal altercation took place, and we'll hear more when Marietta testifies. But I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of what was going on. So this tainted the rest of the vacation. John and Karen and the kids want to distance themselves, obviously, from the drama. So, they don't necessarily want to be around the same people that Karen and John just had an argument about. That's my take. And I don't buy that it was nothing, but that's just my opinion.
And with regard to that trip, when was the next time, or when was the last time that you saw him?
So the day that they were leaving, I saw him by the pool. He came up, he gave me a big hug. He said, "I love you. This was a great trip. Thank you so much." And I said, "Well, you're definitely in again for next year." And he said, "Absolutely." And that was the last time I physically saw him.
And so that conversation, just turning back for a moment, as far as with regard.
This Aruba trip, sorry, it took place right on, they were there during the new year. They rang in the new year of 2022, the same year that John O'Keefe's life was taken. So about 29 days later, he is no longer with us from these Aruba incidents or these events. And like I said, it tainted the rest of the vacation for a couple of days, and it appears these Sullivan sisters have a total axe to grind with Karen.
Regard to Ms. Reed, you know what day that would have been, as far as in relation to when they were leaving? Early January, 37th?
I want to say it was the 5th. I want to say it was January 5th.
Now, after Aruba, did you have any conversation with Mr. O'Keefe after that?
I talked to him via text a couple times about a couple different things, but one of them was, as I mentioned, we start planning a year in advance, and I said, "Rooms are coming available. Are you in?" And he said, let me recover from this trip first."
Which means, no, I don't want a room right now.
Now, ma'am, if I could turn your attention to.
All right, there's the end of that one. Sorry. But I mean, right? It just seems like they were trying to avoid you. I mean, and he doesn't want to go on a vacation with you guys again, especially with if Karen's there, because you guys cause drama in his relationship. So he doesn't like that.
Good afternoon.
Now we are
present at the Waterfall Bar and Grill on January 20th.
Ah, stop. All right, so David Yannetti, this is the name of the clip, or what I call this clip. David Yannetti makes the Sullivan sisters irrelevant in 3 questions. Here we go.
Good afternoon.
You were not present at the Waterfall Bar and Grill on January 28th of 2022 in Canton.
I was not.
You were not present at 34 Fairview Road in Canton on January 29th of 2022.
It's not.
Yet you'll agree with me that Michael Proctor, the state police trooper, visited you at your home all the way in Pembroke, Massachusetts on February 8th of 2022
Yes.
to interview you?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. So they don't even question Carrie Roberts. They make her irrelevant by not even questioning her. They ask 3 questions. Were you there at the waterfall? Were you there at 34 Fairview? And did Michael Proctor, lead investigator, come and talk to you just within days, weeks of this incident? And people that were in the home, 34 Fairview, didn't get questioned until months later, sometimes 18 months later. Does that make sense? So the lead investigator really just wanted to get more juice on Karen's charges, on putting the charges on Karen. He wanted more meat to his charges. He wanted a motive. He wanted more. He wanted something to say that was a motive, because the rest of it didn't make sense. And he obviously had to have known he was covering for and framing. Not just covering for the individuals that did it, but also framing an individual who is completely innocent. That's what Michael Proctor did. So, all right. So up next, these are going to, it's going to be a longer clip again because now this is going to be Marietta's side of the story. And we're going to call this clip the Aruba incident.
2022. Do you recall that time frame?
I do.
And do you recall where it was that you were or where you were going for that time?
Yes, sir. We were going to Aruba for a family trip.
And is that sort of an annual family trip?
It has become since then. It was the first time I had attended.
And do you recall sort of the time frame on that trip as far as when you were leaving, when you were coming?
Yeah. So we left on Friday the 31st, and we returned the next week, Friday the 7th.
And when you say we, who is we?
My mother and I flew out together with another group of people to meet my sister and brother-in-law down in Aruba.
And at that time, so to meet them down there, had your sister Laura, had she flown down prior to you?
She had, yes.
And at that particular time, were you dating someone?
It was. I was seeing somebody, yes.
And the person that you were seeing, was that person coming on the trip as well?
He was, yeah, the day after we got there.
So your sister arrives on the 30th, you arrive on the 31st, and the person you were seeing arrives on the 1st?
Yes.
Now, when you arrived there, do you know about how many people were on this trip?
I would say over 30, upwards of, I would say over 30 is the best estimate I could give you.
And as far as this trip was concerned, do you recall where you stayed?
Yep, we stayed at the Renaissance Aruba.
Is that someone that you stayed?
Did say the Renaissance here or somewhere else. I heard her say the Evanescence.
On this occasion as well, subsequent occasion?
Yes.
And on the 31st, when you and your mother arrived, do you recall about what time of day was that you got there?
So our flight landed around 3:30-ish. I would say we weren't at the hotel much later than that.
And with regard to the hotel has a lobby area, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe to the jury sort of what does that layout look like? What does the lobby look like?
Sure. So right when you walk in the front doors, right in front of you is the check-in desks, 3 or 4 of them in front of you. To the left of you, when you come in, is a hallway to one side of the hotel. To the right of you is a bank of elevators that leads to another hallway that leads to the other first floor side of the hotel. You're in a big lobby, and then directly across from where the elevators are is the entrance to the pool area.
And when you arrived there at some point in time on the late afternoon of the 31st, you also checked in your room, and then following that, where did you go?
So we checked into our room, and then happy hour was starting around 4:30, so we met everybody down at the pool for that time.
Was there a bar in that area of the pool?
Yes, pool bar.
And so when you get down to the pool bar area, who, if anyone specifically, did you see or did you run into?
So first ran into my sister, gave her a hug, the rest of the kids and my brother. As soon as I got into the pool, I ran into Johnny and a couple of our other friends that were sitting at the pool bar down there.
And with
She calls him Johnny.
reference to who you referred to as Johnny, what's his last name?
John O'Keefe.
And that was someone that you knew at the time, is that correct?
Yes.
And how did you know his name?
He was a very, very dear family friend. He was very close to my sister, subsequently became very close to me and my family as a result. And he was my nephew's godfather.
And fair to say that you had known him for some substantial period of time?
Yeah, since Ben's father unfortunately passed away.
So at this point in time, when we're talking about turning from 2021 to 2022, how long had you known Mr. O'Keefe at that point?
Oh, man. Probably about 8, 9 years. That's as long as my nephew's been alive.
And when is it that you would see, or how often would you see Mr. O'Keefe?
Family parties, any family party that we threw, kids' birthday parties, and my sister's Christmas party that she would throw every year.
And how would you describe sort of the nature of your relationship with Mr. O'Keefe?
He was similar to a big brother to me. He was somebody who was there for my sister during her darkest times, so I really respected him for that. But yeah, he was a big brother and a family friend.
Now, when you saw Mr. O'Keefe at the pool bar after you arrived there, what kind of conversation did you have with him, or what, if anything, were the two of you doing around that?
So I went up to him in the pool. He had his Alabama hat on. He expressed to me that he was excited to watch the Alabama football game at the pool bar, given.
Remember, Laura Sullivan also testified to he just wanted to watch this game at the pool bar. So basically that means he was probably drinking all day at the pool, all afternoon or evening at this pool bar, and Karen was back in the room watching the kids, and she comes out looking for him, and he's hanging all over this Marietta Sullivan chick. So what would you think?
In these circumstances, we were in a beautiful tropical place, and he got to watch his favorite college team play football. And he said that's all he really wanted to do for the day was be able to watch that game.
So Karen allows him to do the thing he wants, which is just stay in the pool bar and watch his game, apparently. Well, he can't do that with kids, so she's in the room with kids. So she just is a babysitter? Is that the way he was treating her? So she was probably a little mad about that at the moment, and not happy that he wasn't coming back to the room anytime soon. And when she does find him, he's sloppy drunk all over this Marietta. At least that's what the situation appears to be.
Now, at this point in time that you're talking to Mr. O'Keefe, were you aware of him dating anybody? Had you met anybody that he was dating at that time?
I had not met the person that he was dating. I had heard about her through family friends and other people that were on the trip.
So as far as the other sort of family events that you would see Mr. O'Keefe at, Ms. Reed or his girlfriend at that time wasn't there with him?
No.
So after the time that you spent at the pool bar that afternoon, do you recall what else you did that evening?
Yep. So most of us in the group had dinner reservations. I believe they were around 7 p.m. and we were all getting ready to leave the pool bar to get picked up around 6:30.
And as far as a fairly large group that went out to dinner that night?
Yeah, most of us.
And was Mr. O'Keefe part of that group that went out to dinner?
He was not.
Do you recall about what time it was that you got back to or returned to the hotel?
Most of us got back a little after 9. Taxis were kind of crazy to get, so a little after 9.
And when you got back to the hotel, where did you go?
I went upstairs to check on my mom. She had gone in a bank of taxis before me, so I went upstairs to make sure that she was up there and safe and in the room.
And so however long you spent up in the room with your mother, at some point you come back?
I did.
And when you came back down, by down, and you recall where you were staying in the hotel?
Yep, so we were on the 4th floor of the hotel, so I took the elevator up and then I took it back down to the lobby.
And at that point in time, when you're getting back from dinner and going up to the room and coming back down, were you aware of where Mr. O'Keefe and his niece and nephew were staying?
Yeah, I knew what they were saying, yes, room-wise, yep.
And where was that in relation to the lobby?
First floor.
So the lobby's on the first floor, their rooms are on the first floor?
Yes.
So when the elevator gets down to the lobby level, you get out, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what if
So you have to say, okay.
You just have to answer yes.
Yes, sorry.
So the elevator gets down to the lobby, you walk out with anyone you see when you come out.
So when the elevator opens up, the first person I saw was the attendant standing behind the desk. I didn't see anybody else in the lobby with me until I stepped out. When I stepped out, I looked to my left and I saw Johnny coming in through the first set of outside doors.
Now, as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, was there any other sort of term that you would use to refer to him?
Johnny or Godfather.
And, Your Honor, I think this may be appropriate.
All right, so folks, I'm going to say again that first instruction I gave you with the last witness, that you're about to hear testimony about certain conduct or behavior allegedly committed by the defendant. Ms. Reed is not charged with committing any crimes other than those charged within the indictment. So this witness's testimony may not and must not be considered by you as any evidence that the defendant has a bad character or as evidence that she may have a propensity to commit the crimes with which she's been charged. You may not take the defendant's prior acts that you'll hear about as a substitute for proof that the defendant committed the crimes charged here. But you may consider the act solely on the limited issue of the defendant's state of mind and the nature of her relationship with John O'Keefe as it might go to motive or intent. You may not consider this evidence for any other purpose. Specifically, you may not use it to conclude that if the defendant committed these acts, that she must also have committed the offenses with which she's been charged. You can only use the evidence for the limited purpose of how it goes to the defendant's state of mind, motive, and the nature of her relationship with John O'Keefe. And for the same findings that I made at sidebar. Yes.
So you walk out of the elevator, you're by yourself, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you see Mr. O'Keefe. Could you see where Mr. O'Keefe was in relation to the lobby or where he was coming from?
He was coming from the outside doors into the lobby.
Is that where the pool bar is located?
Opposite side.
Opposite.
Yes.
And when you see him come in, who, if anyone, do you see with him initially?
Nobody with him.
And what, if anything, was he doing or how was he acting sort of when he came?
So he sort of stumbled in. I came out of the elevator and my initial response to him was, "Whoa, are you okay?" I actually said, "Whoa, Godfather, are you okay?" But yeah, he was stumbling into the lobby.
And did you go over to him at that point?
I did. I went up to him and I gave him a hug.
And what happened then?
I pulled back. He was glassy-eyed, looking above me. We never made eye contact. He was looking above me. It looked like he was looking for someone. I asked him, "Where are you going?" assuming that he would be coming to the pool bar to meet us. He kept looking around and he indicated that he was going that way and pointed toward a bank of rooms to our right. And I said, "Well, you should go that way." And I stepped back and I guided him toward the area that he was going.
Now, as far as the bank of rooms to the right, you indicated that you were familiar or aware of where.
Do you guys believe this story? I kind of don't. I don't think it was as quick as, "Oh, well, then you should go that way." No, I think, what if she was like, "No, John, come on, Johnny, come here. Let's stay with us. Like, hang out with us. I just got here." What if she was like pulling him her way and Karen came and saw something, and it made it appear like she was keeping her from him. I don't know. Keeping him from being able to come home, come back to the room where he was supposed to be. If he was looking for the rooms that he was supposed to be going to, maybe he was on his way and she prevented him. She stopped him. Maybe. I don't know.
Mr. O'Keefe was and where the children were. Is that correct?
I know they were on the first floor. I'm not 100% positive as to where exactly their rooms were.
Okay. And if you know, did you know whether or not that Mr. O'Keefe was staying in the same room as Patrick and Kaylee at that point?
I didn't know if they were staying in the same room or not, no.
So you point him in that direction, and what happened?
So I pointed in that direction. He walked off. I continued out to the pool bar when I heard very loudly his name screamed across the lobby, very angrily, and it made me stop in my tracks.
And when you stop in your tracks, what happened?
I started to turn around to come back in. So once you go out to the pool bar, you kind of go around a corner and you go out of view. So I turned around to go back in.
So if he was leaving, like if they had already separated ways and he was going back to Karen and she's going a different way, then why would Karen even think that? That's why I don't believe this testimony. I think she's telling lies.
As I'm going back in, I hear someone yell, "Who the fuck was that?" And as I come around the corner, I see Mr. O'Keefe walking toward a woman. And he said, excuse me. He said, "Calm down, that's Laura's little sister."
Oh, she's so traumatized by someone telling her, "Who the fuck was that?" Like she almost choked up on the stand. She's choking up. She can't even get through the story. It's so traumatizing for her. Really? Come on.
And what happened?
When I came back around the corner, I said, after Mr. O'Keefe said, "Calm down, that's Laura's little sister," I said, "Hi, nice to meet you." That's when Miss Reed's head snapped up, and she very loudly told me to go fuck myself across the lobby. And I said, "Yeah, fuck you too," and walked away.
The only thing that this story does is make me like Karen more. It endears her more to me. I like that she can swear. I like that she speaks her mind. I like that she stands up for her man. Like everything about this story, I don't hate. I don't care that she swears at people, strangers. I would do the same. Like, I don't care. This story is a nothing burger. And it really was here just to be prejudicial. And that's the only reason. And this story should have never come in. And like I said, Michael Proctor, lead investigator, February 8th, or whatever you said it was, February 8th, he's already traveling to other parts of Massachusetts to go and interview the Sullivan girls so that they know how Karen gets on vacations. I mean, whatever.
And just to be clear, when you say Miss Reed, this is someone that you became familiar with as you're coming along?
This was my first interaction with her. I had never been fully introduced to her at all. I just had seen her sitting by the side of the pool when I had been talking to Johnny earlier in the day.
And the person you know to be Miss Reed, do you see her in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you just describe as to where she's seated or what article of clothing that she's wearing?
Sure, she's in a black and white checkered blazer. She's 2 people in from you.
Does that record reflect identification?
Yes.
Thank you. As far as Ms. Reed was concerned, what, if anything, did you observe as far as the defendants beyond the yelling? What, if anything, did you observe as far as her demeanor or how she was acting at the time that this interaction was going on?
She was just very loud. She very, energetically screamed for me to go fuck myself. She was waving her hands. Johnny was trying to calm her down. And after I said, "Yeah, fuck you too," I went out to the pool bar, so I didn't see much after that.
And could you hear anything as far as when you were walking out to the pool bar, as far as any other conversation between the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe?
Not after that first time, no.
You go back to or you go out to the pool bar, and with anyone did you talk to?
I went straight up to my older sister, Laura, who was out to dinner with the couple the night before. And I said,
I'll allow this part.
I went up to her and I looked at her and I said, "John O'Keefe's girlfriend?" And she looked at me and said, "Karen?" And I said, "Yeah, you guys like her?" She said, "Yeah, she's okay." And I said, "Well, she sucks."
Now, following that...
Well, she sucks. That's basically how she wraps it up. Well, she sucks.
At any point in time later in that evening, did you see
I think these Sullivan sisters suck.
either Mr. O'Keefe or Ms. Reed later on that evening?
I did not see them, no.
And when was the next time that you did?
I saw them briefly on the 2nd, which was the day that we rented cabanas on the island.
And when you say you briefly saw them, about can you describe?
So we had all rented the cabanas. Each family had one or they were sharing one. I was sharing one with my family down at the end. We got about halfway through the day and realized that their family cabana was still empty. So I saw them about halfway through the day when they did come to the cabana, and I briefly saw Ms. Reed and Mr. O'Keefe at the pool, the island bar, that same day, but there was no conversation.
Because maybe they didn't want to talk to you. Because maybe you were trying to do something. Maybe you did get a little handsy with John. Who knows? But you know what? Maybe they didn't want to be around you. maybe you people suck. Maybe you're not fun people. Maybe you're all catty, judgmental, rude, annoying people, and she didn't want to be around you.
Now, with regard to Mr. O'Keefe
That's
and
my
Ms. Reed,
take.
at some point in time on that day at the Cabanas, what, if any, conversation did you have with your sister regarding that?
So my
Objection.
I don't know what this is. I'll see you at sidebar quickly.
Get a sidebar. This is almost over.
That I gave you regarding evidence of statements made by John O'Keefe for the limited purpose of establishing his state of mind. And I will fully give you this instruction again at the end of the case. So it's the same one that I already gave you. Go ahead, Mr. Lally.
Ms. Sullivan, with regard to the day of the Cabanas, did you have some conversation with your sister Laura in regard to Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed?
I did.
And what, if anything, did your sister Laura tell you she had learned from Mr. O'Keefe?
So my sister pulled me aside from everybody and asked if the night that I got into the altercation with Miss Reed in the lobby, if I was making out with Mr. O'Keefe.
This is total hearsay upon hearsay and whatnot. And yeah, I don't know how this is allowed, but okay.
How did you respond?
That I absolutely was not.
And when you say absolutely was not, beyond the fact that it didn't occur, why would that not occur?
He was.
I'll allow it.
He was family. He was my older brother. For all intents and purposes, it just never would have happened between us.
See that smile on her face? Let's slow her down. Let's slow her down to normal speed. And watch that smile on her face.
That I absolutely was not.
And when you say absolutely was not, beyond the fact that it didn't occur, why would that not occur?
He was.
I'll allow it.
He was family. He was my older brother. For all intents and purposes, it just
Liar.
never would have happened between us.
I think she's lying. I think she wants him, but maybe he didn't want her, or maybe, I don't know. But that big old smirk there just says everything, doesn't it? How she said that? That was very telling.
And you expressed that to your sister, is that correct?
I did, yes.
Now, as far as the remainder of the trip was concerned, starting with the defendant, Ms. Reed, what, if any, other interaction did you have with her?
None.
And as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned, what, if any, further interaction did you have with him?
None. That was it.
And was that normal, or as far as Mr. O'Keefe was concerned?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
That, as far as I knew Johnny, that wasn't normal. He would always come up to us, up to our family, try to be around my nephew, his godchild, and he was always the life of the party and wanted to be around his family and his friends.
And following that trip in Aruba, did you see Mr. O'Keefe again?
I did not.
I have nothing further on.
All right, Ms. Giannetti.
Thank you, Ron.
And now, this clip I'll call Same Three Questions.
Good afternoon, Ms. Sullivan.
Good afternoon.
Fair to say that you were not at the Waterfall Bar and Grill on January 28th of 2022 in Canton.
I was not.
You were not at 34 Fairview Road in Canton on January 29th, correct?
I was not.
Yet Trooper Proctor drove all the way to Pembroke to interview you on February 8th of 2022. Did he not?
He did.
Nothing further.
Interesting.
Ms. Lally.
Lead investigator cares more about some BS high school Aruba drama crap than actually investigating who took the life of a Boston police officer in front of the house of another Boston police officer. They have not investigated whose Ford Edge they found, or not found, but that Lucky Lawfren saw at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, when he didn't see a body there previously. So there's a lot of investigating that the investigators choose not to do, and some odd choices that they make, like investigating Colin Albert and Allie McCabe 18 months later, after the fact, after a grand jury testimony, after things get leaked that Colin was even in the house, because they've all been trying to say that Colin was never in the house. So lots of inconsistencies going on here. And a lot of mean mom action at play. I mean, it is crazy. All these women somehow felt like they had some possession over, like John was their possession, even though these women were married and had their own families and friends and, to take, or their own families to take care of, and their own husbands. Yet these women maybe had something for John. Maybe they wanted more. This little sister vibe, maybe she didn't. look at John like he was a big brother. He might have looked at her like a little sister, but that doesn't mean that she looked at him like a big brother. She might have wanted more. Who knows? I'm not saying that there is anything there necessarily. I'm just saying that it's weird the way that they all are with John. Like, well, we knew him before, so he's ours. He's more ours than he is Karen's. Like, what? He was in a relationship with Karen. He loved Karen. He obviously loved Karen and was trying to work things out for the second time. So it's just bizarre, the women in this case. And I thought it deserved taking a look. So let me know what you guys think of the Mean Moms of Canton. Who would you add to the list or take off the list? What do you guys think? Anybody else that you think deserves to be here? Uh, deserves the title of Mean Moms of Canton. So let me know in the comments below. Please do not forget to like this video. Make sure you are subscribed. And thanks so much for watching. Take care. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye now. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.